Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, Johnisasurfer. This is a channel where I talk about mental health, the ups and downs of living with a disability, and my love of surfing. I haven't talked much about the surfing, but that's going to increase imminently, actually. I hope you had a good week since the last video came out. If you haven't seen any of these, welcome. I hope you enjoy it and find it informative. This is all very rough and unscripted, and there's a very specific reason for that. Well, there's two. One is I can't be bothered to try any harder, and the second one is that I actually want it to be like this. I don't want it slick and edited. It needs to come without cuts or complex edits or anything like that, because we're talking about mental health, and on a subject like that, everything has to be very, very authentic, because I could be addressing people who are experiencing mental health issues, and they need to be reassured that what they are seeing is indeed authentic and hasn't been carefully contrived to manipulate them in some way or make them feel a certain way. I hope that makes sense. If you want any further clarification, well, YouTube has a comment section, so stick something in there, ask me a question about my process, and I'll be happy to answer it and explain myself. So how's my week been? Well, a few weeks ago I was surfing, which was really cool, down at that reef in Bristol. I'm gonna go again later this year. It was just so much fun, even though I sucked. That's a good thing about surfing. Even if it's a really bad day surfing, it's still a really good day. So if you're looking for activities to improve your feeling of well-being, something like that is a good place to start. Anything that involves water sports is pretty good, to be fair. Whether it's kayaking, canoeing, just fishing, I suppose. That's also probably pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, when I came from that, I thought, oh, my balance wasn't really very good on that board. I've got a long way to go, a lot of improvement to achieve. So I ordered myself a like a balance board. So it's like a very small surfboard that you can stand on, and it has like a sphere underneath it, and you balance and you wobble and you develop your own sense of balance. So I've been using that, and that's quite good fun. And I think it's good for the dystonia as well. Because dystonia has a close relationship with the concepts of neuroplasticity, which is where your brain has the ability to adapt and develop its own mechanisms for healing certain conditions. So we can self-heal, and we can adjust, especially in the regime of movement disorders, and that is very well documented. I might cite some sources at some point. So at the moment, as you can see, I'm up here. I'm in my old bedroom when I was a kid, because I'm visiting Mum this week, because it was Mother's Day last Sunday, and I couldn't be here for various reasons. But so now I've come up for the week, and we had a lovely dinner last night, because you should look after your mum if you can, because they make great sacrifices for us. So what I want to talk about this week really is purely mental health, and I'm going to refer to a website. I'll put a link in the description, but it's mentalhealth.org.uk, so I assume it's like a Quango, possibly partly governmental. I don't know, but it's a good source of information. I found 3 pages that I wanted to talk about that had some interesting data. So that's where we are going to proceed to now. Before we do that, I'm going to do 2 things. First, and most importantly, I'm going to take a sip of water. Oh, thank you for being patient with me. I take a multitude of medications these days, and it leaves me with a bit of a dry throat. It's one of the side effects. I'm very lucky. I don't have any major side effects to the medication I'm given, and if you saw what I've been given, that would come as a surprise, because it's pretty strong stuff. So Second thing to discuss is a quick disclaimer. I am not a trained medical professional. I am not a doctor, I am not a nurse, I am not a physician of any kind, I have no formal medical qualifications, and therefore anything I say should be taken not as medical facts or any other kind of fact, really, I suppose. It is a matter of my opinion, okay? This channel is about me telling my story and sharing my thoughts and feelings. I am not giving you professional medical advice. If you are in need of medical care in any way, shape or form, you have a number of options. You can call 111, you can call 999, you can take yourself straight off the A&E, you can go down to your local police station or fire station and they'll help you if you're in real serious trouble. Or at the very least, even if you're just feeling shitty, talk to someone you trust. You know, pop down your local church, or even if you've got a good relationship with your neighbour, knock on the door and say, look, I'm just feeling really bad. Can you help me out? You know, can we talk for a bit? Or a friend you trust or something like that. So, disclaimer over. So, we're going to go to the first page. And, oh God, I hope this works, because I'm still getting used to this software. So, fingers crossed, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, great. So, this is the first page I wanted to show you from the Mental Health Foundation. Surviving or thriving. So that's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? What are we doing? Are we surviving, or are we just thriving? Or are we just surviving, or are we thriving? I really should edit this, but I'm not going to. And the goal of this page is to establish the state of the UK's mental health, as it says there. And we all have mental health in the same way that we all have physical health. At some level, it may be very poor physical health, it may be very good physical health, and exactly the same applies to our mental health. And I think that's like a really, really important fundamental point that a lot of the world doesn't grasp. When we talk about mental health, generally people think about insanity. I think that's like the kind of thing that pops up in their mind first and foremost. Lunacy, insanity, you know, he's lost it, all that kind of thing. He's got a screw loose. There's still some stigma there. There's still a lot of stigma there, and I'm hoping if I can do one good thing in my life, I think it would be nice if I could just make a contribution to destigmatizing the concepts of mental health. It should be something we can discuss openly. At the workplace, among friends, with our relatives. And we're getting better at it, but we've still got a long way to go. I think it still has that funny vibe to it, where if you start talking about mental health to people, maybe not physically, but mentally, you can see them kind of backing off, looking for the emergency exit, wondering where they can run to. You know, some people will listen. They're usually people who have experience of the situation themselves and know that it's you know, they're not in any danger just because you say you're not feeling great. It puts people on edge, and we need to change that. It comes with its own set of challenges. I mean, if you're talking to someone who is like a paranoid schizophrenic, I mean, there's a way of talking to people like that which is beneficial to your safety because they're suffering from that. I mean, that's a very serious mental condition. But at the same time, it's still just a health problem and it can be treated, and hopefully going forward can be treated better and better. So there's some talk here about a commission which produced a survey, and it was done by this charity, the Mental Health Foundation, and they discovered the following. Drumroll. Key findings. Only a small minority of people, 13%, were found to be living with high levels of positive mental health. Right, the first thing they're right is probably the thing I agree with the most. I think we have a really serious mental health epidemic drifting across the UK and probably the entire planet. I think the last 10 years and the last 5 in particular, and I'm treading carefully here because I don't want to get political, but circumstances have been very, very stressful. Maybe going back to 2008, something like that, maybe much further. But certainly the last 5 years have been tough for everybody. and I think a lot of the damage that's been done, while maybe not permanent, may require a lot of work to overcome and resolve, if it can be. And at the very least, I think there are going to be people who will be carrying emotional scars around for the rest of their lives. I'm not going to make mention of what subjects may have caused this. Just think about what have been the big news topics in the last 5 years and figure it out for yourself. I don't want this to be a political channel, so I'm just really careful not to go there. Time for another sip of water. Please bear with me. Oh, that's nice. So, people over the age of 55 report experiencing better mental health than average. That's an interesting one. What do you think about that? I'm kind of on the fence. I think, obviously, as you get older, you're less subject to the ravages of hormones that flood through our body, testosterone and so on and so forth. And I think that means that we just mellow out a little bit. And also, there's a good chance that most people, or a preponderance of people, have got their lives in some sort of order by that point. So maybe things are just calming down when you're getting into your 50s. I kind of feel the same way, even though I've got this problem myself. If I compare myself now to how I was when I was in my 20s, yeah, pretty different person really. I was a bundle of fun. Yeah, limitless energy and kind of hard work to be around really. So, next point. People aged 55 and above are most likely to take positive steps to help themselves. Going for a walk, spending more time on interests, getting enough sleep, eating healthy, learning new things. Yeah, I 100% agree with this. In fact, they kind of beat me to it really. I was gonna do a special on the importance of having things in your life that are more than just your life. Sitting down and watching TV is not a hobby or an interest. It's just you not doing anything and filling time with what is usually just crap, although there are some good programs. You need to have something that keeps you going when you can't think of anything else, when you're feeling bad. I've got my guitar, which I like to play badly for nobody else. Nobody's going to listen to it. But I love playing it. I've got some subjects and I'm studying. I'm learning a few languages. I keep myself physically fit as best as I can. So I think I've got those boxes ticked, and I think anybody who's watching this should consider this seriously. You should have a hobby at the very least. And you may say, well, I don't know, I don't know what I'm into. Well, it's like, well, go and find something. Just try a few things out. Try something you never tried before and see how it makes you feel. You may come away thinking it's a load of rubbish and you hated it, but it may also stimulate something in your mind that thinks, but even though I didn't enjoy that, it does make me think I might enjoy this other thing which has some relationship to that what I've just tried. So, sorry, I just dropped something on the floor. So at least try and find yourself some interests. You'll come round to something eventually, and anything that takes your mind off yourself can be good for you. That's what I said, can be good for you. Not necessarily is. I mean, being eaten by a crocodile probably not very good, or being trapped in a burning building. That's, might take your mind off yourself for a few seconds, but not in a good way. But hobbies, interests, exercise, they are key. More than 4 in 10 people say they've experienced depression. Damn right, I believe it's way more than 4. I believe it's more than 6. 70% wouldn't surprise me one bit. Over a quarter of people say they have experienced panic attacks. I have no experience of panic attacks. I have experiences of breaking down, but I don't think it was a panic attack, because panic attacks have clear physical symptoms. I broke down when the dystonia started, but I didn't panic, although I was very frightened. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I think there'd be something wrong with me if I wasn't frightened of what was happening at the time. Sip of water, bear with me. Excuse me. Least professional video ever. The most notable differences are associated with household income and economic activity. Nearly 3 in 4 people living in the lowest household income bracket report having experienced a mental health problem, compared to 6 in 10 of the highest household income bracket. Well, I've definitely seen, personally, instances of moderate, at least, mental health issues amongst people in across the spectrum of household income. And I'll give you an example. I'll be as vague as I can to protect the innocent, as it were. I know a guy who has done very, very well for himself in life. I think most people would be envious of his position in life right now. He has a family, and I've not seen him for years actually, but when I used to see him fairly regularly, I went round to his house one day for dinner, and we're all sat around chatting away, and I was sat next to one of his children, a teenager, and I noticed that this teenager had a lot of scratch marks across their wrist, and I just idiot that I was, it just didn't click with me. I just looked at his wrists and just said, what have you done to yourself there? You've fallen. And he's like, oh no, it's just just a thing, just nothing. He didn't really want to talk about it. And in my naivety, I should know better than this, but in my naivety, it just caught me on the hop. And I said, oh, don't worry, it'll heal up. I mean, those are just shallow wounds. They'll heal up in no time. That's not even going to scar. And he's like, yeah, you're right, I know. So, kind of like by talking about it in a really matter-of-fact style was actually quite positive. I think if I'd tried to take him to one side and wag a finger in his face about pulling himself together, or if I tried to express excess sympathy or anything like that, it might have been counterproductive. And it probably was the best thing just to say, that'll heal up, that'll be okay. Because I don't think he wanted to have a really heavy discussion about it. But yeah, it can happen to anybody at any income level. I think certainly income is still relevant. If you're amongst the poorest earners, I think you're at the point where your earnings are so low and you are so strange that you can barely make ends meet to bring anything, or make anything work. Your house is a mess and you can't pay your bills, and scary looking bailiffs are knocking on your door. I mean, that is bound to have some impact on you. So there's different kinds of poor. There's poor as in like, well, we can pay our bills every week and we can get enough food in and we have a roof over our head, and so therefore you're doing okay. We have a small amount of savings perhaps. You could still be classified as being on a low income, but you wouldn't necessarily be as vulnerable as somebody next door who has a tiny income, has bills stacked up because they haven't managed the money well. Maybe they couldn't, or they didn't, they're just terrible at it, or they didn't care, and they're just going to start falling apart. In a moment of frankness, my dad was a good example of this, in that he was, on the one hand, a very brave man. He was a firefighter and a soldier as well before that. He had some fascinating stories from his army days. And so he would be one of these guys running into the building that everybody else is running out of, with smoke billowing out of it. And he had some real shocking stories about the stuff he'd seen. But a telephone bill would drop through the door and he would just have a breakdown. He just couldn't handle it at all. It was really strange. So Mum looked after the money and Dad put fires out. That's how we coped. Anyway, moving on. The great majority of people out of work have experienced mental health problems. Well, that shouldn't come as a surprise, because it means you have a lack of things to do. You don't have any money. You may be lacking a sense of purpose. You may be socially disconnected because you're not with your work colleagues. So yeah, makes sense, really, doesn't it? And just over half of people who have retired. So that kind of semi-contradicts the previous point about people aged 55 and above. Most likely to take positive steps to help themselves and blah 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 blah. But it could just be that over the half who have retired and have experienced it have taken active steps, so I'm not certain. And overall, nearly 2/3 of people say that they have experienced a mental health problem. This rises to 7 in every 10 women, young adults aged 13 to 34, and people living alone. Okay, so I haven't got any conclusions to draw about that, but it's some food for thought. Now there is a conclusions section on this. I'm skim very quickly over this. I'm not going to do the 10 steps we can all take to thrive because it gets a bit political, and we'll discuss it separately. And I'll put the links in the description of the video anyway, so you can have a read of it yourself. So, 1. Current levels of good mental health are disturbingly low. Yes, they are absolutely rock bottom, I think, in this country right now. And like I said, pretty much anywhere you go, lots of people really struggling, worried for all sorts of reasons. Although we have made great strides in the health of our bodies and our life expectancy, we now need to achieve the same for the good health of our minds. Agree 100%. It should be treated with exactly the same level of priority. It is just as important. Your physical health is affected by your mental health and vice versa. So the notion that you would only pay attention to one of those aspects, one of those components of yourself, is bizarre, really. It's like if you only ever took yourself to the doctor when the left-hand side of your body was ill. You know, it really makes no sense. Number 2, the survey suggests that our collective mental health is deteriorating. Totally agree. And that's why I champion causes like the 180 Project, and that's why I'm doing this channel. We need to start talking to each other about it. We need to start being honest with ourselves about it. We need to start thinking about it at the political level. I'm not going there, but at least it has to become something that our leaders engage with a lot more than they do right now, because the impression I get is that for the longest time it's always taken a back seat, and I have personal experience of this. At the beginning of my dystonia, I had some interactions with the local mental health services, and I have nothing bad to say about the individuals who helped me, but clearly they were just in no position to reach out to me. They just couldn't do it. I got one phone call and then I never heard from them again. Not their fault. They are rushed off their little tootsies. I'm a lucky one. I had people around me who could help take over, but others may not be so lucky. There are people living in isolation in desperate need of help, and if your neighbour is one of those people, go and knock on the door, ask them how they're doing, offer them a cup of tea. Then just sit there and listen. Just listen to them talk, because they probably need to. Anyway, the figures show the experience of poor mental health while touching every age and demographic is not evenly distributed. If you are a female, a young adult on low income living alone or in a large household, your risks of facing mental ill health are higher. So you're at risk. Doesn't mean you've got anything wrong with you, but it's just something you should be aware of. And if you're taking the steps that we've mentioned before, like exercise, hobbies, interests, so on and so forth, which could be collectively summed up as having a kind of purpose in life, then maybe you can prevent that from happening to you. So we're not going any further than this on this page. 10 steps we all take to thrive, that can wait. Read it yourself. And you'll understand why, because there's a few sort of political hints there that I just don't want to go there. So, next up, let's see if my technical skills are good. Great. The most common diagnosed mental health problems. This is a much shorter page, because we're 24 minutes in, and I don't want this video to be too long. So, yeah, quick warning, this content mentions anxiety and depression. You may find it distressing. It may bring up, traumas and memories that you'd rather not have to re-experience. So you are warned. Mixed anxiety and depression apparently is our most common mental disorder. Yeah, I believe that. With 7.8% of the people meeting the criteria for a diagnosis. That surprises me. I'm sure that number's larger in reality, but I don't know where they got the data from. I think it's in double digits, personally. The number of people I've spoken to who, when you open up about these subjects, you suddenly find out that a lot of people have been harbouring these secret problems and not disclosing them to somebody. So I don't think they're showing up in the polls, and I think that data is erroneous. I think it's too low. It just says meeting the criteria for diagnosis, so it doesn't necessarily mean that they have anxiety and depression. It just means that they're in the area where they may get it. But I think there's more people who just have it. Anyway, next bullet point. 4 to 10% of people in England will experience depression in their lifetime. Talk more slowly, John. Yeah, that one makes more sense. It's a matter of seeing the signs coming, I think. Are you isolating? Are you looking after your physical health? Are you eating regularly? Are you eating well? Do you find yourself becoming aggressive for no particular reason? Are you projecting onto other people? Just generally, does it feel like your world's turning upside down? That's usually how I think of it. And if it does, and it is, and if you're not doing any of the things that I've just mentioned, maybe again it's time to start seeking support from somewhere. I think most areas of the country have some small-scale, local mental health charity doing some good work, and look them up, find them, or just call the Samaritans if you're really stuck. Though the last time I called them, they were engaged, and I sat there for ages, and I really needed them as well. But fortunately, a good friend came to my help, my beautiful, darling friend Becky, an absolute sweetheart, who was there for me at 1 o'clock in the morning and listened to me just crying my eyes out. So thank you, Becky. I know I thanked you before, but you can have another one. Thank you, my love. So, where are we? Okay, yeah. Common mental health problems such as depression and anxiety are distributed according to a gradient of economic disadvantage across society. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. I don't think it's quite as linear as this suggests. I think you can be pretty hard up and still in good mental health. I think a lot of it is about having a sense of belonging, a sense of community, a purpose in life. I've been very, very hard up in the past, with not many fallback options. I remember the lowest I've probably been financially was when I was very young and I just got out of the army, and I was working bits and pieces of stuff here and there, and I remember just a short period of a few months where my food budget was £5 a month. I think that constitutes poverty, doesn't it? And I was feeling the pressure. I don't think I was depressed. I think I was just determined to get through it. So I'm not sure about that point. I think it's worthy of some discussion. Mixed anxiety and depression have been estimated to cause 1/5 of days lost from work in Britain. Well, if that's true, that's a huge amount. I mean, 20%, that's a lot. Sip of water time. And it's totally avoidable. And given the current economic climate globally and nationally, the last thing we can afford really is for people who need to take personal time off because they're just struggling to cope. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be taking the time off. I'm saying they shouldn't be in that position. They should be mentally healthy. So workplaces are getting better at dealing with these things. The company I work for, I don't know whether to name them yet, name them or not yet, but I can say with absolute certainty that the company I work for have treated me really well with my various health problems. They've been brilliant. They've set a very, they set the standard. I think if other companies were to follow their example, a lot of people would be doing a lot better. So I might give them a shout out. Anyway, moving swiftly onwards. Finally, 1 in 5 adults in England have a common mental health condition. Yeah, no shit, you don't say. You didn't need to do a survey for that, you just needed to walk through a town. Most of us come from fairly smallish towns, and well, actually it doesn't really matter, does it? Whether you live in a big city or a small town. But you can see it on the streets. The increase in the number of people who are just wandering around aimlessly. I've noticed that in the last few years. And I don't necessarily mean homeless people, but people who just look completely lost. Maybe even looking a little bit mentally unwell, perhaps. Drinking during the day. We used to call them winos. And they used to sit outside Morrison's. And there used to be like 3 of them. And now it seems like a significant proportion of the town is occupied during the working week with people who clearly are not well. So, yeah. Browse all of the mental health statistics. That would be a very long video, so I'm not clicking on this. And we're going to move on. Because I want to try and keep it half an hour. So, let's move swiftly onwards. Come on, this is one going to work as well. So we're going to move on to the next page now. So I just wanted something simple that we can think about, and maybe we'll do a slightly deeper dive in another video. Men and women statistics. So, another warning, we're talking about serious issues here, really serious stuff. Sexual assault, suicide, suicidal thoughts, self-harm, eating disorders, anxiety, abuse, violence, trauma, body image, that's one I didn't think of, substance abuse and addiction. Okay, so just be forewarned, some of these things may distress you. If so, stop reading, close the video, go and chill out for a while, get some support. So, says that in England 1 in 5 adults has a common mental health condition. Alright, we knew that. About 24% of women and 15% of men. I disagree with that number, but it's just my opinion. I think there's a lot of men out there with mental health problems, and they're not talking about it, and I don't think they're even talking to their mates about it. It's, the guys who are down the pub 3 nights a week, I think, are not having conversations about their mental health. I've never heard that. Lots of talk about football and rugby and stuff like that. Guys do need to get better about talking about their mental health. They need to find a place they can go to, or a person they can talk to, where they're not going to feel weak or stupid, where they're not, where they don't need to be scared of being ridiculed. Not that I don't expect anybody to be ridiculed, but you never know. There are some dickheads out there. So I think men are very wary about talking about these things. Not me, because I'm just perpetual gobshite. I don't care. I'll quite happily talk about this to anyone. So yeah, in 2018, we saw 6,507 suicides registered in the UK. So that's too many by 6,507. There should be no suicides. Nobody should be taking their own life. There's no good reason for it. The only exclusion I would make would be for people who are very seriously ill and there's no recourse to treatments which would improve their condition, and they are miserable and in pain and nothing's getting better for them. Those people do exist. I think it's a tricky subject to approach, but I think we need to at least consider making some provision for these people. But what form that would take, again, takes us into political territory, and I'm not going there. But for the most part, nobody should be committing suicide. I mean, it's awful. I mean, I've had thoughts of it. I did have a dress rehearsal once. I call it a dress rehearsal because it wasn't a cry for help, because I never rang anybody. and it may even have been serious, possibly. Don't worry, I'm not going to break down here. But it was after my brother had died, and it was 6 months after that, the woman who I love very much decided she'd had enough of, I don't know what, to be honest. She never really told me. But she went, and she never really explained well, and she just couldn't get away from me fast enough. So, what can I say? I'm a silver-tongued charmer. Sip of water time. So I was in a real mess, and there was a point where I put a plastic bag over my head and a noose around my neck, and I tied the noose to the door handle so it would put pressure on my neck, and I would gradually lose consciousness, and eventually I would die, because I would die of carbon monoxide poisoning from my own exhalations into the bag. Needless to say, I didn't do it, because at some point I thought, you still got a mum, and what's she going to think? How's she going to cope? So that stopped me dead, and well, I shouldn't have said that. Stopped me dead. It stopped me in my tracks. And I took the bag off my head and the noose from my neck, and I was okay. And I thought, right, no, life is shit and you're deeply unhappy, but you don't have that luxury. You get on with your life. You've got to do it. You've got to be there. So, of those suicides, 3/4 were among men. So, correlation, men not talking about the mental health problems, 3/4 of suicides are men. That can't be a coincidence, can it? I mean, coincidences do occur, but I don't think this one is. I think that lack of ability among men to get the help they need for their mental health problems is driving a lot of them to suicide. So, for all you guys out there, and well, for all you guys and girls out there, for everybody really, look at the men in your life, look how they're doing. Most of them are doing fine, I'm sure, and don't need much scrutiny. But think about the ones who are going quiet, the ones you're not seeing very much of, the ones who seem to be drinking a bit more, the ones who just make you just wonder a little bit when you see them. You know, they don't seem right. Just have a word with them. Just ask them how they're doing. Just generally, just say generally, how are you doing? How are you getting on these days? What's happening with you? Where have you been? What are you up to? Tell me how you're feeling. How are you feeling, I think, is the important part. And then just shut up and listen and let them talk. Because they will. If they feel safe, they'll start talking. Trust me. So, 3 times as many men as women die by suicide. Well, you just said that. Men aged 40 to 49 have the highest suicide rates in the UK. That's weird, isn't it? Because they were just saying that, like, 55 and onwards, people generally are looking after themselves better. So there's like a peak between 40 and sort of early 50s, where there's this very high risk of men committing suicide. So consider age range when you're appraising all the men in your life and the lives they're leading and their demeanour and how they are. Just think about these things. We're looking at guys who I think it's just possibly whatever problems a guy may be having, compounded by the fact that you're approaching middle age. And ladies, you won't understand this because I know you have your own processes to go through, but for a guy, getting older is a big deal in many ways, because you lose your virility. Whether you made good use of your virility or not in life is irrelevant. The fact is, you start getting weaker. And for men, strength is important. Physical strength is very, very important. It's a critical part of your identity and sense of self. And if you start to feel that deteriorating and your testosterone levels start dropping, I think it can have a drastic effect on how you feel about yourself. Because I'm 51 and I get it. And I'm a guy who's always looked after himself. Like, physically, I've always been in good shape, and I've kind of drifted through that period. Still in pretty good shape, but yeah, I'm like 51 now, and the world is a different place for me now. Disregarding the dystonia, even though I didn't have that. You go from being like it sounds silly, but you go from being a prospect to not being a prospect anymore, in terms of relationships. And yeah, I've just been thinking about that one really, and it's really odd. It's not horrible, but it's just strange. It is quite a radical transition. So anyway, what are we saying next? Men report lower levels of life satisfaction than women, according to the government's National Wellbeing Survey. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. I'd like to look at that survey and see how they got the data. Men are less likely to accept psychological therapies. Absolutely agree. Yeah, my dad fought tooth and nail to avoid getting the help that he did need. I want to go off on a tangent there, but I need to cut this video off within the next 5 minutes, I think. Men sorry, bear with me, let's get my bearings. Yeah. Yeah, look at this. 3/4 of adults who go missing are men. That's terrible. I'm not saying we should have parity like it's 50-50. Nobody should be going missing. But again, if 3/4 of adults who go missing are men, something's going seriously wrong for the men in our society. And good luck having a society without any men. So that needs to be addressed, and I don't think it's going to be addressed at a high level. It's going to be addressed at a community level, at the society level. No point waiting for governments to come to the rescue, because they're not very good at it generally. 87% of rough sleepers are men. Yeah, well, we all know that because we walk past them on the street, don't we? When I was a kid, I could only think of one guy in the whole town who was homeless, and he kept hassling me for 20p when he saw me on a Saturday as I was coming home from my Saturday job. Now the town's full of homeless people, so it's getting serious. Men are nearly 3 times as likely as women to become dependent on alcohol, and 3 times as likely to report frequent drug abuse. Yeah, probably. More likely to be compulsorily detained for treatment. More likely to be victims of violent crime. Basically guys beating the shit out of each other. And they make up the majority of the prison populations. These are all things that we know. I mean, there's not an interest survey, and we know all of this. What's more interesting is that women between the ages of 16 and 24 almost 3 times as likely to experience a common mental health issue as males of the same age. So when you start diving into the data in certain areas, it gets a bit confusing, doesn't it? So young women and older men have similar problems for some reason. Women are twice as likely to be diagnosed with anxiety. Yeah, I think that's probably true, actually. I think men are more likely to be diagnosed with depression, hence the suicide issue. Then we're going to stop here. We're not going to go into statistics about women and girls and then etc, because we're running out of time. But I'll do another video at another time, and it won't be next week because we'll need a break from this. This is heavy stuff. Yeah, but 25% of women, 10% of men, age 16 to 24, report having self-harmed at some point in their life. There's the key point. They report it. There's a big difference between report and not reporting. How many people out there are self-harming and not telling anybody about it? I bet the number is a hell of a lot higher than the statistics say, but we shall see. So I'm going to dive in through these numbers a bit more over the next week, and maybe in 2 weeks I'll post another video like this, fairly long form, bit heavy, but we need to get these conversations going. We need to normalise it. It should be something that we discuss openly and comfortably, and I think that alone would save a lot of lives. It would certainly drop the number of suicides down. I sincerely hope. Yeah, so we'll end there, and we'll come back to me. Hello. If you've stuck through that, well done, because that was 44 minutes of really heavy material. Difficult subject matter to discuss, but we need to embrace this conversation, I think. Hug the porcupine, as it is. Yeah, so if you're still here, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate everyone who subscribes. If you could share the video, I'd be very grateful. I do put a link to buy me a coffee if you think it's worth, you think my time is worth a couple of quid. That's awesome, and I'm grateful, but it's not the most important thing. Sharing is the most important thing. share these videos, share your thoughts on these videos, share a few comments in there as well, because you know it helps the algorithm, which helps the video spread, which you know could literally save a person's life. You know, you might share the one video to the right person at the right time, and it could save them. I don't have some messiah complex saying that. I'm not saying it's me saving somebody. It's just the fact that they understand that there's people out there they can reach out to and talk to, and they don't need to be scared, and they don't need to be sat in the corner of the room huddled away, sobbing their eyes out or hiding under a bush. Happy memories, eh? If you watch this and you are one of those unlucky ones who have your own suite of mental health problems, my heart goes out to you. I'm going to say a prayer for you. I've been there. I still am there to some extent. I have to look after myself. But don't give up. Don't give up. It's not worth it. You could be missing out on something really special if you give up. Yeah, that's the important part. You don't know what tomorrow will bring. It could be something really good. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for watching, and I bid you good night. Oh, and have a good week.